We'll all stand up to begin with. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, IEEE. That music made it feel like the future is already here. Yes, so Koha for a cataloguing agency, considerations and challenges for a system implementation during COVID lockdown. I'd like to just start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people on whose land we're meeting today. And I'd also like to take this chance, starting off, there's a few committee members here today, so I think we actually need to give a little round of applause to the committee for getting this whole thing happening. Yay, it's Vala, we're all here in person, it's incredible. Thank you, committee. So it feels a little bit today talking about this as though it's from a distant galaxy a long time ago, far, far away. I'll tell you a little bit about ESA, where I'm from. My name's Ben Chadwick. I'm Director for Research and Information Services at Education Services Australia. Thank you. So ESA is a not-for-profit founded and owned by the state and federal education ministers. We deliver education solutions for the K-12 sector. One of the business units at ESA for which I'm responsible is SCIS, the Schools Catalogue Information Service. So SCIS has been around for about 40 years now. We're looking at coming up to our 40-year anniversary. We're a subscription service, so we do original cataloguing, creating mark records for school libraries. About 80 to 90% of Australian schools subscribe to our service, about half of New Zealand schools, and we have schools in about 26 other countries as well, so really an international business. Schools subscribe to us, they come to our website to download records, or they use our API or our Z39.50 service to import mark records into their own local systems. We have a staff of about 7 people in our cataloguing team here in Melbourne, and I'll just point out Renata Bielhartz, our cataloguing content manager, is here today as well, who manages that team. We also work with contractors around Australia and cataloguing agencies in New Zealand as well. There's about 1.7 million records, bibliographic records in our database. Since 1994, we've catalogued into Voyager as our system. We have a front end as well that our schools use, so our subscribers interface with one system, but at the back end is our cataloguing system, and that's been Voyager up until recently. We, since 2015-ish, we were aware that we need to start thinking about where we'd go next with our cataloguing system, just with Voyager's age, but also the support and development roadmap for Voyager wasn't clear to us. So we started thinking about this, and towards the end of 2019, we put a list of requirements together. We've also got Caroline Ramsden here today, who was quite heavily involved in that process as a previous SCIS manager. So it's great to have you here today, Caroline. I'll get you to answer some questions, maybe. Put those requirements together, and we had the project approved by the ESA board in about March of 2020. Before that, we released an expression of interest in early 2019, selected a system by mid-2019, put a business case together in late 2019, which was approved early 2020, which was a crazy period, as you all know. And we commenced that project to install the new system in June 2020. So we went with Koha, and we appointed Catalyst IT to do that system implementation on our behalf. Oh, I've been missing. Oh, thank you. This is my first day out of ISO, actually. So I've been even going up and down the elevators. I haven't been using the stairs, but it's exhausting still. That's the slide I was going to put up. Voyager. We've got a a newsletter or a magazine called Connections, and that was the article that was released when we started with Voyager back in the day. So we had a list of requirements. A lot of it was around sort of key considerations for a cataloguing system. So to give you a sense of the scope of what we're working with and our own needs, we are a cataloguing service. Whilst we were looking at a library system more broadly, we only really have requirements around a small subset of the functionality of a library system. So we're talking here about cataloguing modules, authority control, other associated modules such as batch processes for quality processes and quality control. The catalogue and search of the catalogue to the extent that that's required for our cataloguing team. So as I said, when MARC records are created, they're then transferred over to our other front-end systems. So we didn't have that requirement for a front-end OPAC per se. So other than those quite specific requirements around what the system needs to do for cataloguing, there were a few other key considerations that we had. So again, as a cataloguing agency, we came into this expecting that there'd be some degree of customization required to match our own workflows, etc. We talk about a bit of that in the paper, and I probably won't go into detail on all of those unless there's questions today, just in the interest of time. But there's also some specific requirements from ESA management more broadly. So ESA does provide hosting, a hosting environment for schools and other services. So we are a hosting agency, and we have commitments around privacy and security governed by the Australian Signals Directorate. So they have a process called the IRAP assessment process. So for all ESA products and services, we have to meet these sort of requirements. So it's important for us to host the software in our own environment, and that's called GovZone. And related to that, we wanted to have direct access to the databases for running queries, SQL queries against the database for quality and reporting purposes. So those are some of the things that in the end sort of tipped us in the direction of Koha. And this is where I'm going to hand over to Catalyst to tell you a little bit about themselves and where they came in.
I'll just do a brief intro. Ngā mihi ki a koutou ku hua mai nei ki te whakarongo ki a tātou, ki a mātou. Ngā mihi hoki ki ngā tangata whenua o te rohi nei, nā rātou te mana, nā rātou te whenua, nā rātou te tino rangatiratanga mō aki tonu. I'm Chris Cormack. I'm the technical lead in the Koha team, and I'm one of the original developers on Koha. So I've been doing it for 23 years now, which makes me feel really old. And I'm going to just briefly introduce Alicia Amo here, who will talk a bit more later as well. Alicia is our not technical lead, development lead, who did most of the work. And she's been working on Koha for 7 years, since she was 16 anyway. So which also makes me feel really old. So that's kind of, the photo there is the Wellington Koha team, so in the Wellington office of Catalyst IT. We're in a company of 350 people, but the Koha team is about that size. And so that's, you can see me and Alicia, and then there's Alex, Tosca, Hayley, Te Wainui, and Catherine. I'm going to probably pass back over to you, Ben, for this next slide.
Sure.
Sweet.
Right, so this slide was really just, I wanted to put a couple of talking points down around some of the difficulties or challenges we faced as we got started working on this together, especially around the elephant in the room. There's COVID happened right as we got started. So, I mean, the key impact, as you'd imagine, we were imagining getting together in a room and brainstorming and talking through our requirements back and forwards. And I guess the initial intention going into it was that we would spend like a chunk of a day or two at least in workshopping. So we immediately sort of switched to online, and this was all happening at the same time as our respective businesses were moving online. and our teams were moving online. So there was a lot happening. And the general approach was we realized very quickly that there was this fatigue phenomena that we'd get. So we switched to a smaller number of online sort of engagements, but keeping the time quite limited. So it was challenging. I think that process of us understanding what our requirements were, that what would usually be quite an iterative dialectic process of we want this, how's that going to work? Can your system do it? How are we going to make this work? Was interesting online, but I think we got there. Maybe it stretched out a little bit longer than we would have imagined initially. All the way through right till the training of our staff at the end, that was obviously all conducted online as well. So we didn't meet up at any stage, did we? Throughout, so I maintained a risk register on our side throughout the length of the project, and there are a number of risks around lack of availability of staff on all sides. So on the ESA side, we had our ICT team, our systems development team, and our own sort of SCIS subject matter expert project team, and then the Catalyst team across the ditch as well. And so there were risks on every side about at any time any number of us could be out of action. There was a period, you were in lockdown for a little while where we sort of lost...
Yeah, we were. I think we overlapped lockdown for a little while, but yeah, I don't think any of us got sick at the same time, luckily. We all kind of managed to stagger that. That's really good planning by our project manager, Catherine. But no, I think luck played a lot of that, part of that. We're just lucky.
Yeah, so I logged all of those risks, but none of them really turned into issues, so that was great. One challenge that did, I guess, cause delays in the project, ultimately the end of the story is we did deliver the project on time and on budget, but some delays were caused by as part of that transferring to the home environment. ESA ICT was updating and changing processes. There was a lot of multi-factor authentication came in obviously during that period, so changes in access and access control and security. So there were patches where the Catalyst team was sort of locked out of our servers. So it was partly a communication issue, but partly a change issue around what was going on at that time. Look, we need access to the server to do this, that, or the other, and we say, why can't you give them access? Oh, they should be able to update this or that, and so there was a bit of back and forwards with ESA ICT to ensure that Catalyst had the access that they needed. So that caused some delays at different points. The final dot point there, what was I getting at there? Our systems development team, towards the end of the project, needed to ensure that our front-end system could communicate with Koha. And one of the customisations that I talk about in the paper is around an API. So Koha has a number of APIs, so a number of ways that another system can communicate with Koha to extract data. But it wasn't exactly what our front-end system needed. So in particular, Koha natively exchanged a lot of data out of the system in Mark XML. But our system specifically wanted sort of raw Mark 21, and so Catalyst were able to build something for us to meet that need. But I think for our systems development team, who are working on our front-end system and Catalyst, their communication was a bit of a challenge at that time. So the SCIS team had quite good communications, but to bring other parties in ESA on board, it caused a couple of delays there as well. Was there anything else you thought in terms of challenges?
No, just I reckon, yeah, there's a few times when we were thinking like 2 hours in a room together and we would solve this, but it would be like 600 emails instead kind of thing, which is, it's quite, when you can't see people's faces or read body language in the same way, it just means you don't know if stuff you're saying is landing, which is why I'm glad I'm doing this with people in the audience.
And I guess that's another point that we had, rather than relying on emails, we, as the project team, had the ticketing system. But the ESA, other teams in ESA weren't involved in that ticketing system. We do email, so they had these different channels of communication going on, which became a challenge. Why do I keep doing that? COVID brain. I'll hand back to Chris.
So, yeah, I want to talk a little bit. This is really briefly, this is a sample implementation. It's actually the implementation diagram for Kim's University. This is for AUT, but it was close enough. This is pretty much what a tech stack for Koha kind of looks like. I won't dwell on it too much because it's not really that interesting unless you want to talk to me afterwards about setting one up for you. I'm happy to do that. But no, the main thing is Koha's, it's a web application. Well, it's two websites. It's a public website and what we call a staff or an admin one. And so in terms of for ESA and SCIS, we really didn't care about the public side. It was just the admin side. So it's basically some web servers with a database and a search engine. In both AUT and SCIS's case, the search engine we use is Elasticsearch in the background. So that gives you a nice, powerful search. So we're kind of jumping around a bit, and this is what happens kind of when we're preparing talks in two different countries without ever meeting in person. Well, what about 2 hours ago was the first time Alicia's ever met Ben in person. So that's how it goes. So this is Levin Library in Horowhenua in Wellington. This is the birthplace of Koha. It started here in 1999, a tiny little library in New Zealand, and it was a Y2K project. So they had a library system that didn't understand 4-digit years. So when it got to 2000, it was going to be 0, which in the database was 1968. That was as old as the database could go back. So when you hit 0, it went back to 1968, which is really good for raising revenue on overdues, but not so great for users. So that short story, so we jumped from 99 in 1999, I should use 4-digit dates, to kind of nowish, if I can get it to work. There we go. And this is from Marshall Breeding's librarytechnology.org website, and this is just sites that have said they're using Koha. So he reckons there's somewhere between 15,000 to 18,000 libraries around the world using Koha, which, according to him, is the single most installed library system. So it's pretty cool to come from a town of 30,000 to running the whole of Turkey. So 1,127 library systems on a single Koha cluster. So it scales up. Scales down to Scouts Club. Scout installed it at the church library for his merit badge as well. So you go up and down. So I'm going to pass over to Alicia now because we've talked enough.
Cool. Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk now really briefly about the development part of our implementation process. So this is GitLab for anyone who hasn't seen it before, and this in particular is a set of boards, each containing different issues that we kind of use to represent tasks or tickets. So GitLab was our best friend during this development process. We used it to track everything that we wanted to work on, everything that we were going to work on, everything we were currently working on, and then what was ready to be kind of pushed into the production version of SCIS's Koha. So we had the open board kind of represented a backlog. We had next up, which is what SCIS would kind of regularly prioritize tickets for myself and our development team to work on. And then we would allocate things to whichever developer was working on it at the time. Tickets would sometimes switch between that in-progress board and the testing board as we tried to kind of model that iterative process that we would have had a better chance of doing if we could meet in person. This is kind of our replacement for it. So things might go between in-progress and testing a few times before they were officially signed off. So this is just a screenshot of our commit log. As you can see, we had a few different authors on this project, which just means that it was a team effort. We even had a couple of development moments from SCIS themselves. So Adam Stiles is on the SCIS team, and he was able to contribute back to his own Koha project, and some of the fixes, which I'll talk about soon, that he's worked on have been put out into upstream Koha. So because Koha is open source, it gets worked on and maintained by individuals and organizations all around the world, and so we like to thank and recognize those companies in our release notes. In the most recent version of Koha 2205, which just came out last month, we were able to thank SCIS for their contributions to Koha, which is very, very cool. So things look different when you prepare them on one computer and put them on another, but basically this is one of the features that we worked on for SCIS, and it was a feature which would show the how authority records have been coded to be used with in cataloging. So as many of you catalogers will know, authority records have a 008 field, and there's at positions 14 to 16, that is how you can code what that record is to be used for, like what the appropriate use for that record is, whether it's a main entry or a subject or a series entry. And from a cataloging perspective in Koha, there was no way to quickly see what that authority could be used for. So we built a little enhancement in the search results of, and if you did a search for an authority, it would show you a little column with ticks and crosses just indicating what it would be used, appropriately used for. So that was a feature that we did initially for SCIS, but have since been able to upstream, and now libraries all around the world who have upgraded to Koha 2205, they will be able to access that feature too. So this is a feature, well, a bug fix actually, that Adam from SCIS wrote. So when you're cataloging a record and there are a few fields that have been marked as important, one version of Koha put out a fix that meant the wrong tag was showing. So that's not particularly useful if you've got an error in your record and it tells you to go to find it and it's not there, not where you're looking. So Adam wrote a fix for this, which was really awesome, and we were able to help him write that fix and then upstreamed it on their behalf. Yeah, I saw. So yeah, that was a very cool one that we were able to facilitate someone who wasn't here for development. So we've also, these fixes haven't yet been upstreamed, but they are in the process of doing so. So these are a couple of fixes that we thought would be interesting to the catalogers in the room. We've written fixes for SCIS to be able to strip trailing spaces when they're cataloging, so that includes like inner new lines in your fields or trailing carriage returns and that kind of thing. We've also done punctuation auto fixes, which is quite cool, and hoping to upstream that as well. And we've also written something to apply defaults when you're cataloging. So with Koha, you can create your own custom frameworks, and those are just kind of a set of default rules and values that might apply depending on what type of record you're cataloging. And sometimes when you're, depending on how you're creating a record, whether you're importing a new one or completely writing a new one or duplicating one and kind of starting from a base of an existing record, there might be different cases in which you would want to use those defaults that you've defined in your framework. So those are a couple of fixes that SCIS has asked us to develop for them and sponsored, and we're in the process of getting them into upstream Koha so every other library can use them too. This is a preview of some mark. So we just thought this would be a really useful way to view the mark for an authority record without having to kind of click into it, and it's just quite a useful shortcut. And this is something that was custom for SCIS as well, so they wanted to be able to quickly see what authority records have been updated in a specified date range, what was the before and what it is now, and who did it as well. This was really cool because it meant that we could work on a feature to store the history of a mark record. And as part of this feature, you can actually roll back and kind of revert to a past version of a field in your authority record. So not yet upstreamed, but working on it, and a range of cool features all built into this to create a report like that. So that was a lot of a lot of development work, and definitely not all of the development work we've done either. But we now have a regular release cycle, so every month we meet with the SCIS team and use that GitLab board like we showed before, and set a bunch of priorities for the next month. So we're constantly giving back to the Koha project through that work too. Cool, thank you.
Those are some of the people involved. Let's say that was a screenshot taken during the project. Yeah.
It's definitely not one we recreated last week.
But it's a pretty accurate recreation.
So I think that leaves us time for questions.
Yes, we have time for 2 questions.
Okay.
What language is Koha written in?
Primarily Perl. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, primarily SQL, but Perl's
Oh,
the
yeah.
programming language around it.
And Ben, do you have an in-house developer at SCIS?
No, well, we have a development team at ESA, but they don't have any ownership or responsibility for Koha. And then we have one member of our team who's a systems coordinator, but who also has some development capabilities and loves to tinker. So Adam's actively involved in the maintenance of Koha, but I guess not in a formal development capacity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.